$666 subscribers? Sweet! Thank you so much to everyone who subbed to the channel. It still feels like yesterday when I made my first video and I was shocked to see that anybody was watching it at all. It's been a lot of effort to get to this point, but it's the support from subscribers like you that keeps me going all this time later. And since we hit a big milestone, it's time to celebrate. This video will be the premiere of a possible new video series, IDK. Let's argue about coasters. We're all human beings, so we all have subjective opinions about our favorite little airtime or inversion machines, and some of them are whack. So let's have a little fun. In a previous post, I asked you all to submit your hot takes and unpopular opinions so I can compile the best ones and roast them on this channel. And that's what this video is all about. So let's argue about coasters! One thing I want to say before we start this though, this is all in good fun. Please don't take anything too seriously here, and if I seem to be getting super nitpicky about certain things, that's just for the sake of the conversation or the video. Now, there was a semi-popular comment which discussed the elitism that is present in parts of the coaster community, and I can definitely get behind that as somebody who loves old arrows. There's a thin line between poking fun at each other's opinions, having a good time, and being a snobbish asshole. But by that same token, part of the fun in this hobby is learning people's opinions and engaging with them. At the end of the day, this stuff is subjective, and it's just as much of a mistake to take someone else's opinions too seriously as it is to be snobbish about your own. So in case anyone misconstrues things, I want to state up front that we're just messing around here, alright? Anyways, on to the video. Phantom's Revenge still beats Wildcat's Revenge as the best coaster in Pennsylvania. Despite the fact that I've lived in Pennsylvania for a decade, I've actually never made it out to Kennywood. I know, I'm working on it, so I can't comment on this directly, at least for the time being. That said, I can speak objectively on one thing, and that's that Wildcat's Revenge Lift Hill sounds like this, while Phantom's Lift Hill sounds like this. There's a pretty obvious winner here. Also, Wildcat's Revenge isn't even the best coaster in its own park, so it's definitely not taking the best coaster in the state record. Coaster Wizard says Six Flags America is greater than King's Dominion. I don't think this is a take any serious human being would have, but I just wanted to include it because I think Six Flags America deserves some more love. It's far from perfect, but it has a unique and eclectic collection of rides. It's never crowded, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, which gives the park a nice laid-back atmosphere. And TBH, it's worth the trip alone just for Batwing, but like, come on man, Intimidator 305 is right there. Speaking of Intimidator 305, I-305 is not intense. Like dude, you've seen the articles, right? Like, you know it never has a line for a reason, yeah? You know they literally had to modify the ride multiple times because so many people were losing consciousness and they still get complaints about the ride today? Like, I don't know, man, do you sleep in like the Mission Space Centrifuge or something? Or maybe your mother's a fighter jet. That's the only way I could see someone having this take. Maverick is the best coaster at Cedar Point. Sorry, Steel Vengeance. I have massive respect for enthusiasts who buck expectations and state that Steve isn't the best coaster at Cedar Point. There's so many great, unique, and iconic rides to choose from, but like, Maverick? You have the original Giga, no doubt one of the most iconic rides in roller coaster history, with one of the all-time first drops. You have the inimitable masterpiece, that is Magnum. You even have a potential candidate for the best B&M invert, and you pick Maverick. Maverick's like that high school student that gets a B+ in every single subject and ends up disappearing into some boring middle management job because he's good at everything but not amazing at anything. No one's gonna be bothering Maverick at the high school reunion. They'll be talking to Millie about his dope synthwave track or watching Magnum rip lines of coke off a sophomore's locker. Nate says Batwing is the best coaster in the States. You know, up to this year, I would have legitimately agreed with that take. In fact, I did.
Hot take alert. Oh yes, the Flying Dutchman is better than Tatsu and I will die on that hill.
Batwing is stellar, but then I got a good night ride on Tatsu and I can't agree with it anymore. Tatsu just has the insane setting, and it has the height, it absolutely nails the theater of the flying coaster, but outside of the pretzel loop, Batwing has it beat handily in the force department, and the fear department. I know I've used this analogy before, but Tatsu is a graceful dragon floating above the clouds, and Batwing tries to punt you out of the train at every opportunity. The Flying Dutchman layout is just a little too short and a little too generic to usurp a towering custom creation that's built on the side of a literal mountain. But would Tatsu have been better if Vekoma built it instead of B&M? 100%. This is pandering. This is pandering. Pandering, but right again. This is definitely pandering, but it is well written and correct. This is the most obvious pandering I've ever seen in my life. You're right, though. Pristine Boy says that Jersey Devil is great and doesn't deserve the hate. Now, I'll admit, I was one of the haters from day one, but over the past year, Jersey Devil's gotten a lot better in my mind. The ride runs faster, you absolutely sail through the mid-course now. Jersey Devil's really upped its game since opening day, and now it offers strong airtime start to finish. It's also way better early in the day now. It used to need to warm up hard, but now you don't have to wait till sundown to get a quality ride. It still very much warms up, but the difference between the morning and the night is not nearly as huge now. The restraints still suck, it's way too rough for a new coaster, and it's so road dependent, which pisses me off on a ride where you can't pick your seat, but it's definitely one of the best rides in the park now. A solid number 3 behind El Toro and the Runaway Mine Train. At Keystone now, would I say it's better than Velocicoaster? No dude, what are you smoking? Dadbod Game Squad states, great adventure should RMC El Toro. Will save on maintenance costs in the long run and will offer a smoother ride experience with the opportunity to improve an already incredible layout. Imagine 200 plus foot height, beyond vertical drop, inversions, all while maintaining that signature ejector airtime. This is a good, well thought out, and well structured argument, which is a shame because it's been wasted on a take that I really don't like. Now I will say though, I'm not opposed to modifying El Toro to make it a steel coaster with Titan Track or something. If you've seen my video about the ride, and if you haven't, this is your sign to watch it, you know that I have little faith in Six Flags to do a good job maintaining El Toro moving forward. I mean, they haven't been proving themselves lately exactly. And if changing over to steel track allows the ride to continue for decades to come, it's a sacrifice I'd be willing to make. RMCing it though? Hell no. The thing is, RMCing El Toro wouldn't maintain the signature character of the original ride, it would change it fundamentally. I've seen some people agree with me on this lately, this is how I justify my opinion, but it feels like RMC is getting more and more homogenous, and that's not really the case, but it's just because we're starting to realize as they propagate to more and more parks that they all feel extremely similar. RMC's never put out a bad ride, but every time I ride another hybrid, it just blends together further in my mind. I know that Joe Dreys would find it impossible to resist turning one of those delicious camelbacks into a weak-ass stall. And if I want to ride an RMC, that's fine. I can go ride Jersey Devil across the park. But El Toro feels unique. There's nothing else really like it in the country. Even Steve can't match the savagery of those first 3 hills. And while I'll be the first to admit that the ride has a weird pacing issue in the middle, in a way that kind of adds to its character, I think rides should have flaws. With shorter trains and worse restraints too, we would lose that awesome whip over the first drop. I don't think this take is the craziest thing in the world, and I'm sure other people share it, but at least personally I hope RMC never touches my baby. Charged on PC states, Mystery Mine is the second best coaster at Dollywood. The theming on Mystery Mine is really cool, and I love the finale. The vertical lifts are also really cool. It's the only coaster I've been on with a vertical lift hill, and it has 2 of them. The first outdoor section was pretty forgettable, but that's fine. Hoo boy, this is a hot take. Lucky for you, I have one friend who agrees with this take very strongly, and she'd probably be mad about it if I left it out. Sorry though, I can't agree. The theming is solid indoors, I'll give it that, but it feels a little disjointed with the awkward outdoor section. Think of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. The indoor sections are well themed, but when you go outside, you still feel like you're blasting through the side of a mountain. Mystery Mine just kind of dies in the middle, which isn't just because of the theming, that the middle section just sucks. It's slow, janky, but not in a fun arrow way, and it kind of takes you out of the story. You're right that it's pretty forgettable, but it also takes up a third of the prime ride time. The finale slaps though, it's great. I don't want to shit too much on Mystery Mine. I think it's a solid ride, but Definitely try to get on a couple more Eurofighters and rides with vertical lifts, even like Fahrenheit at Hershey Park. Like, there are a lot of really good rides out there with vertical lifts. I will say that Dollywood's coaster lineup, at least in my mind, is a tad overrated, and Mystery Mine looks a little bit better in that context because of that, but in the context of roller coasters as a whole, Charged on PC states Verbolton is more intense than a lot of thrill coasters. Now take this with a grain of salt because I went on Verbolton a lot earlier in my coaster enthusiast career, but Verbolton was insane. The helix in the dark was one of the most intense and disorienting elements I've ever experienced. I don't think I grayed out more than that. It might have been the hardest moment for me to handle on any coaster I've been on. I was trying to launch this over the transition points and it was intense. Man came in here with an essay. But like, yeah, you're right. How the hell is Verbolton considered a family ride? Like, from the moment we rolled into that first launch and felt the gut punch from those LSMs, I was shocked in the best possible way. It's legitimately intense. The launches are surprisingly punchy, the whips are like really strong, and that indoor helix is pretty insane, I do agree. It almost comes close to matching the Big Bad Wolf's finale, which is an impressive feat because that finale was wild. Verbolton is one of the most pure, fun, unique rides in the country, and I hope Zero gets more chances to make a ride like this, because they understood the assignment. Emma Williams says, the only things worth riding at Magic Mountain are X2 and Twisted Colossus. Obs can't speak for Viper since it was closed. You didn't need to remind me of that. Let me in! Okay, Emma, I wouldn't go that far, but I do prefer how you originally phrased it when I asked you the question in our DMs, where you said Six Flags Magic Mountain is not brilliant for coasters, which I originally met with absolute disgust. The more I thought about it, the more I kinda sort of agree. Magic Mountain's absolutely stacked on top. Obviously they have Arrow Heaven. Oh, baby. With a solid RMC and the country's best flyer, sorry Nate, but beyond that things do start to drop off a little quickly. The RMCs are great obviously, but they don't have too much character. You know, maybe if Twisted Colossus actually dueled, I would feel differently. Their second tier is filled with a bunch of good but not great rides. You know Apocalypse is pretty brutally rough, West Coast Racers is mid, Goliath is absent of airtime, and Full Throttle absolutely gimps you at the end there. A lot of these rides would be number 2s or number 1s at smaller parks. When you compare Magic Mountain to the other juggernauts like Cedar Point, you do start to notice that the quality drops off a little bit more quickly. And we do have to talk about the maintenance thing. Like, if it were just a month or two, I would give it a pass, but years of operation with multiple major rides closed down at a time, that's pretty inexcusable. That said, I'm being extremely nitpicky here, obviously. I love Magic Mountain. The setting is amazing, and any place that has two of my favorite coasters in the world right next to each other will always have my heart. But I think my absolute gushing adoration for X2 and Viper has led me to rate this park a bit more highly than it deserves. I guess I'm back to being a Cedar Point fanboy again. Aut Coasters says, most steel coasters over 200 feet are better than 99% of wooden coasters. I agree with this take, but like, don't most people? Unless you spend most of your time perusing Historic Coaster Foundation, I think the vast majority of enthusiasts are gonna pick Fury 325 over like, Hurler. NES Man says, Skyrush's lap bars are some of the best. My reasoning is that there's so much lateral room and you feel so exposed, no contact on your waist whatsoever. Yo, no shame if you're into BDSM, dude. Like, I don't know if this is the best place to be talking about this sort of thing. Jokes aside, though, yeah, the Skyrush bars get a little bit too much hate. I talk about it more in my Restraint tier list, but to say they're one of the best is taking it a bit too far. I do agree that it does leave you a lot of room on the train, which I really like. Like, that's the main reason why I love the T-bars so much. Like, Millie makes you feel so exposed, but unlike Skyrush, Millie doesn't try to cut your legs off. At Andy Roman, while we're on the subject of Skyrush, I'm starting to agree that the layout's a bit overhyped, especially the turnarounds. A lot of them just kind of fall flat for me, and the whips don't feel as strong as they should, but the first drop, man? Are you one of those sheeple that waits the extra 20 minutes to ride in the front row? Because that drop in the back row is batshit insane. It makes the ride for me. PNW Coaster says, Full Throttle at Magic Mountain is the best coaster in the park and a top 5 coaster IMO. Got a lot of room in a Row 2 ride in February, and it was amazing. Now, since I've been talking about Magic Mountain's good but not great second tier lineup before, I figured this deserves a mention because I think Full Throttle is probably their best coaster once you get past the heavy hitters. And I also think you're absolutely insane to think that it's better than the 4th Dimension Hypercoaster that's in the same park. Now, what I would say about Full Throttle is that if the ride was like twice the length, I could see it being one of the best in the world. Like, legit. The launches are solid, the inversion is awesome, and the whole ride just has a really good fun factor, but it's so friggin' short. And I know that's not like Premier's problem, that's Six Flags' problem. You know, if another company were to give Premier a chance like Full Throttle with enough money to build a complete layout, it'd probably be a masterpiece. I know it's cliche to bitch about the final brake run right after the loop airtime hill, but it really does kill the momentum of the ride, and that first section is over way too soon too. I wish Six Flags would have just given Premier a bigger budget. The ride has all the ingredients to make a sumptuous ride experience, but it's just a bit undercooked. Pack of Guazis says... Pack of Guazis. Let's argue about coasters. King Ka is better than Dragster. The launch is more forceful, the over-the-shoulders are not noticeable, the airtime hill gives some good floater, and the jungle theme and setting is amazing. You had many submissions, Michael, but this is your most base take. Granted, the last time I rode Dragster was in 2013, but I never understood why people hold it in such higher regard. Like, the pulsating launch in Ka is cooler in my opinion, and sometimes you do get legitimately good airtime in that return hill if Ka's running fast enough. I feel like it's been too long for me to state with authority that Ka is better than Dragster, but the huge rift that some enthusiasts talk about is like non-existent in my mind. Like, the added roughness and the different restraints are the slightest of inconveniences in a ride like this, balanced out by the benefits that King Ka does bring. And hey, our Intamin Strata still exists. Guess who doesn't have any more competition? Free spins are elite, enthusiasts just haven't learned how to properly ride them. Elite? I wouldn't go that far, but slept on? Absolutely. I think they're just overlooked by enthusiasts because you need to get a locker for a 30-second ride experience, and the ride experience is so inconsistent. Like, I had an absolute stinker of a ride on Tambili last year, 0 flips whatsoever. But the bigger models, whenever I do ride them, I have a great time. The clones in general are overhated. I legitimately love Boomerang, Skyrocket 2s are great, and Batman the Ride slaps. Like, clones tend to be clones for a reason. Magnum should have been torn down and Wicked Twister and/or Wildcat left in place. If Magnum were the second hypercoaster, no one would give a shit about it. Also, it's not a true hyper. The drop is less than 200 feet.
That's bait.
Thrill Stuff says that Steel Vengeance is an overrated RMC with a weak first half and a pointless last half. It could have been a better ride if they didn't try to slam as much useless airtime as possible into it, just for a record that no one really cares about. The quality of that airtime is subpar, especially for an RMC. Jersey Devil has more quality airtime than Vengeance. So you're probably aware that Steve took my #1 spot in last year's top 10 video, but I actually do agree with you on the final lap. First lap? Hell no, dude, that drop slaps. And the first 2 camelbacks are airtime nirvana. Those little bunny hops at the end though, yeah, they're more uncomfortable than anything. They're so fast and jumpy, you don't really get a chance to savor the forces before you're slammed back down and thrown back up again. Like, compare it to Magnum's finale. Magnum launches you into the sky with every airtime hill, but then there's a short little break before the next valley where your body can kind of process the insanity of what just happened. Versus Steve, which just jostles you so much you feel like you're being tossed around in a blender. Now, RCs tend to have a problem with this in general. Like, any hybrid conversion that ends with a flurry of bunny hills falls victim to this, in my opinion. It seems that they haven't learned their lesson either. I think people in general are starting to turn on Steve a bit, which is fair in my mind because it's been like everyone's #1 coaster for so many years, but we should avoid the temptation to go too far in the other direction. It's still an incredible experience and absolutely a world-class ride. And that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you will enjoy arguing with me in the comments. Once again, just a reminder, don't take anything too seriously here. We're having a bit of fun. If you really enjoyed this, I might consider doing a whole series about this, like every time I hit kind of a major subscriber milestone. But you just let me know in the comments if you think that would be fun, and I can continue doing these sorts of things. Thanks so much. Remember to please like, comment, and subscribe. We're at 666, well 674 now, but I'm still a pretty small channel and I don't have any monetization goals yet, so I'd really appreciate if you guys can kind of push me over that last hump so I could start making some money from this stupid hobby of mine. Thanks so much, and see you all real soon.